Sharon, it has been an absolute honour and so much fun partnering with you to try and tackle this problem of middle manager overwhelm and the huge sort of workload, but engagement, low engagement we see, and all of the challenges that middle managers face. But they're such a critical workforce. How would you describe that
Yeah, I
problem?
mean, and we often talk about how they're sort of in the middle, there's the middle managers, but that brings with it some huge challenges because the people above them expect them to be implementing strategy and all these sorts of things. And then, of course, the people that they're managing want to be supported and want good work design and all those sorts of things. So they really are and often do suffer from very much the nature of the role and being in the middle. And then I guess in our own management roles, we all experience this. There's just more and more requirements that managers are expected to engage in. Some of those are administrative, some of those are strategic, many of those are people oriented, but it's just a big workload challenge. And as you said, Steph, such a critical group of people because they are the ones that are helping to drive forward the vision of the company and look after the people. And so super, super important, but definitely a group under real pressure at the moment.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's lots of different ways that you can tackle that problem, and adding more resources has become something that companies are now just saying no to, organisation sector as well. That's why we obviously embarked on the work design approach with you. Now, can you just give people a bit of a background on where you started with work design, one of the inventors of it and one of the world experts in this area? Be great to just give people a flavour for where you started and what you're doing now to
Yeah, thanks, Steph. I
work.
mean, I've been doing this on topic for a very long time, too long to mention. In fact, started my PhD working in, of all places, steel manufacturing companies in the UK, and an excellent environment, though, to learn about the power of work design. And really that means going beyond individual and their skills or their competencies or their attitudes and really saying, how is their work organized and structured? What are their tasks? What are their responsibilities? And is there a better or different way of organizing those tasks and responsibilities? And so that's what work design is all about. And it was really exciting in this project to be able to apply the SMART model of work design to the project. And what SMART itself is really a consolidation of decades of research on the topic, which over the years, it's like, how do we know if people have got good work design? Well, what research shows is that there are certain, what we call work characteristics. There are certain attributes of a job that psychologically, physically, mentally are important for people. And really the SMART model just encapsulates all of those ingredients that make for a good job. But
So,
it was really fantastic opportunity to apply the model in this project.
yeah, brilliant. And so, why don't we cover off what SMART stands for?
Yes, absolutely. So, a simple acronym, SMART. S is for stimulating, and this is about having work that is interesting, challenging, energizing. It's okay for people to have challenge in their work. They actually want challenge. And that's what stimulating is all about, having some variety, learning skills, continuing to grow and develop. Then M is for mastery. And this is really about the importance of people actually knowing what it is they're meant to be doing. So are they clear what their roles and responsibilities are? And are they clear how well they're tracking in achieving those roles and responsibilities? So do they get some feedback? And do they have a sense of where their job sort of fits in the bigger picture of the organisation? A is for, sometimes we call it agency, sometimes we call it autonomy. Same thing though. It's about the fundamental importance for humans of having control of the worlds that they habit. So being able to shape your work methods, being able to choose the order that you do your tasks, being able to influence decisions that are made in your team. These sorts of things are fundamental to autonomy and agency. Moving on to R, this is R stands for relational. And this is about the fact that as people, we all have a core need to connect with other people, to have contact, social contact with people, not to be isolated, to get support from people. And so that's what R is all about. It's about those relational aspects of work. And then T, I often refer to as the big one because T is about demands in work and making sure those demands are tolerable. So people always have demands in work. That is what the definition of work is, really. You've got effort you've got to put into your job to meet your goals. But we've always got to make sure that that effort is not overwhelming people's ability to cope. The effort has got to be reasonable, or we say tolerable. So that's the SMART model. So really, if you are able to create smart work and cover off on those 5 things, you're pretty much going to be hitting most of those key psychosocial hazards, that we talk a lot about, and that employers have a responsibility to be thinking about. So that's the model.
Beautiful. And it's very clear the positive outcomes for managers, or any employee, and psychosocial risk management. What about the benefit for the organisation from a performance?
I think this is why I always have loved the topic of work design, because good work design is a win-win for everyone. It means that you've got people who've got that sort of work that I've just described, and when they've got that sort of work, they're going to have better well-being, better mental health, be more satisfied with their jobs, feel more engaged, all of those good things. But also from that flows that they'll feel more motivated. They'll be more able to be creative, use their initiative, be proactive. And all of these sorts of behaviours collectively contribute to organisational effectiveness. So when we're designing good work, we always need to be doing it with a view to it needs to be good for the people and good for the business. And actually that's a sweet spot that you can really achieve. It doesn't have to be this trade-off that everybody thinks, because in fact, if you design smart work, you get both of those key stakeholders' needs are met. And that to me is the excitement of the topic.
It's the magic in it.
Yeah,
Okay, so let's talk
absolutely.
about the managers. So
Yeah,
this was a really new approach where obviously we partnered to bring the SMART methodology and then the diagnostic through Beamible to get the data and insights, and also 4 incredible organisations who wanted to solve the problem internally, but we all came together in a cohort to solve it. So let's talk about a couple of the insights that were interesting in that SMART framework. So on stimulating, we found that managers love the work that they're doing 55% of the time, which is
it's
a really
interesting, isn't it?
strong response.
Because
Yeah.
that's not a lot,
Yeah.
really. That means that if my maths is correct, 45% of the time they're doing work that they don't find stimulating at all, really, which is
Yeah.
quite a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So and the definition, of course, is I love doing this work. So I guess it wasn't sort of a binary, I don't like it or I do. But I think what was most interesting about that 55% energizing was what work they enjoy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And what
So,
work they didn't enjoy. Yeah.
and I think
Yeah.
that it showed they really enjoyed the technical professional work that was actually maybe even more of an individual contributor type of work, generally speaking. And of course, did enjoy the strategy and planning aspects, but didn't have enough time to get to it, things like that.
Was
But this is what
interesting, I think, because that was sort of one of the almost misalignments, I guess, which we'll come to, I'm sure. But, that there's the senior managers and HR people and so on are wanting more strategic, managers to engage in more strategic tasks. And I guess through that process, we discover it's not because they don't find it really energizing and interesting. So there must be another explanation of why they're not engaging in that task as much as they should. And then we have to look at things like time, opportunity, which I think really shifts the conversation in a helpful way. Because I think it can be very tempting just to say, oh, well, managers don't like it, so they avoid it. But the data says they actually enjoy that task. So that's not the explanation.
Yeah. So across all of, maybe we can get into a couple of the other measures and metrics as well, but across all of those insights, what story did that tell you about what managers are experiencing?
People understand that every task that we got people to think about, they rated it on some sort of smart component. And I think what really struck me was that the stimulating was relatively low, so 55%, the agency or autonomy, 51%. So that means half of the tasks people are doing, they don't feel they've got control over. And then I think 56% for relational. The tolerable demands were high, but not terribly, terribly high. I guess we've seen worse, would be one way of saying it. But what it really comes across as is a role where people have got demands, they've got a lot to do, but they're just not getting that sort of work design support that they need. You know, there's a lot of things they're having to do that they don't have any control over. And of course, things that fit into that category were things like administration, you know, compliance, reporting. There was quite a lot around internal meetings, having to do things for other internal agencies that you can sort of imagine the phone call, you know, we need you to do this. But people just really feeling that they were not, you know, having that control or support when they were doing those tasks. So I think you get this really strong picture of great opportunity actually to change people's work and improve it. Yeah.
And I think what we heard from leaders and from our cohort's expert perspective as well was that we want managers to be doing more of the proactive people management. That's a really great point that there's a lot of opportunity there. And the exciting thing about that is that the areas that managers feel low on that agency and also low on energizing and low importance as well are things that we can see some really effective levers and often even within our control or without a budget requirement to improve ways of working, prioritization, role clarity on what
Mm,
we really want these managers to be working on and what
mm,
the highest value work is, whether it be the technical or the people management, and to really improve work design through some of those quicker wins. And then there's obviously longer plays as well. So there are opportunities for AI augmentation to remove some of those tasks or centralization, um, and process simplification as well. So there are a lot of things that we can remove from a manager's plate without impacting business performance, and in
mm.
fact improving business performance by rediverting that time back into
And I
the
mean, we
business.
chatted just as an example about sort of meetings and particularly in some of the agencies, this tendency for people to just get invited to meetings and almost like a sort of a covering your back type of exercise rather than people really genuinely need to be being in those meetings and, you know, having these conversations about, well, what is it appropriate to do in a meeting versus can be done through other means that are much more, you know, quick and time effective. So, as you say, Steph, there are relatively simple things that can be done. I think they're conceptually simple. Sometimes I think they're more difficult to implement in practice because, again, you're talking about a group of people that are already quite pressured and not very well supported and so on. So, I think part of moving forward with the group will be to create those opportunities where people have got a bit of time, bit of motivation to really, really think about them. And I guess that's one of the things that the our stakeholders have got exciting avenues that they're pursuing. But one of the most important ones is involving the managers in that process as well, because I'm sure they've got ideas about what could be done, but what they probably want is to be listened to and to be given a bit of an opportunity to really exercise those and put them into place. So sometimes conceptually simple, but challenging to get to actually happen in, but we hope that this project's provided the fantastic data and incentive to really try and shift the dial a bit.
Yeah. And 6 months ago, when we started this exercise with you, I remember clearly that you said, in order to understand the work, we need to ask the people who do the work. They are the experts in the work. And that really obviously stayed with me. And think that then helps in that change management as well, because they've been involved. We can design for the organisation and for the workforce, but also we can go back to them and say, you told us this is why we're implementing these changes. So they are more willing to adopt. And some of that future modelling we've now done to say, what if we were able to
Yeah.
reduce things by 30%, etc. There's a huge gain. And in fact, we were just talking to one of the participants who could see between a few of the different levers freeing up 38 FTE equivalent
Wow.
across, which when you think
Wow.
about the effort you needed to get a new manager, freeing up that valuable time is just huge.
Wow. And that's the beauty, I think, of the tool, being able to model it like that, because nothing speaks more powerfully to senior executives than that sort of statistic, right? And as we said before, when we're talking about what work design is, also benefit to the people doing the work, because they can, eradicate some of those tasks that suck the soul out of them. So I think that's that win-win for both parties. So that's terrific.
Yeah, amazing. Just a couple of quick things that I'd love to hear from you is one, what would you hope to see when we do a pulse sort of 1 year on?
The most important thing would be good to see a shift in the tasks. And I think that's the beauty of this tool. It keeps it very focused on the task, because even in the discussions we have, there's always this temptation of our stakeholders to say, oh, we need to train people, we need to reskill them. They don't have the skills. But the great thing about this tool is it keeps bringing it back to the task. But what are you expecting people to do? Why are they doing these things? Let's work on that, before we start saying let's upskill them. So number one thing I'd like to see is a shift in the task. So we'd like to see less in that there's a little quadrant where there's the low value to the organisation, but also really unstimulating work. We'd like to see that shifted up to the diagonally opposite quadrant of the high value, energising work, and releasing some of that FTE that you talk about, and hopefully recycling that back in to create more improvement opportunities, and so on. Because it's a journey. It's not a one-off magic wand that's waved, it's a journey. And so what I'd really hope by the time we do the next pulse is that we see evidence that people have been on that journey and it's starting to shift things, and that motivates them and also releases some time to keep going on the journey.
Well, you are very in demand, Sharon. We know between Curtin University, the Centre for Transformative Work Design, your own research. I know you've just got back from a world tour of 3 different locations and keynotes. Thank you for spending the time here, but also a question about what did you enjoy about participating and being, the chair, I guess, of this initiative?
I think I really enjoyed the opportunity to focus on one type of role, because a lot of our work, we're looking at the whole organisation. So it was really an important role. So it's really nice to have that focus. I really loved working with you guys. I thought the tool was very insightful. And for me, that was the main attractor into the project, because I love the fact that, because we normally look at people's perceptions of SMART, but at a job level, this was really going into the task level. So I thought that was a second highlight for me. And I think the third one is just the community that was generated, and the knowledge sharing, and we're doing this and we're doing that, and how did that go? So I think the opportunity for people to learn from each other is so powerful. It makes their own work stimulating. And so that was a third highlight, I think, for me.
Yep, I love that as well. It was brilliant. We
Yeah,
learned so much, and we'll go on sharing, I'm sure, trying to
yeah.
solve these challenges together. So thank you, Sharon. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to the next phase.
Thank you so much, Steph, and for bringing me onto the project. It's been really, like I say, quite a highlight for me this year. Thank you.